Welcome to the School of Wedding Photography. I'm here with Abigail Lucy from the UK, a luxury wedding and events planner. Abigail's planned events for clients including Louis Vuitton, Manchester United, ITV, and regularly works with ultra-high wealth clients on their weddings. Hi, how are you?
Hey, nice to meet you. I'm very
You
good, thank
too.
you. How are you?
Good, good. Um, can you tell us a little bit about your work to start with?
So I do luxury weddings and events. A lot of the stuff that I do is private celebrations for high net worth individuals, many of which are from the Middle East. I also do obviously weddings, as I said, more so here in the UK than abroad.
Abigail, I'd like to ask you about your experience working with photographers and weddings. What's the best way for a photographer to sort of introduce themselves to you and for you to see their work?
A lot of the suppliers that I've found or worked with are either through Instagram or recommendations. But I'm a very open person. I'm very bubbly. I love speaking and networking to people. So I'm always happy for people just to drop me an email or a DM on Instagram and say, hey, let's grab a coffee. Obviously, with time commitments, it's not always possible to meet everybody and anybody that contacts you. But so long as that person's portfolio and style of work matches um, sort of the quality that I pride myself in offering, the standard that I pride myself in offering to my clients, and if I think that their work is something that could be of value to my clients, then I would definitely meet with them because obviously the more the merrier. Not every client wants the same thing, and each photographer is completely unique and different. So I think that as well for me, um, personality and originality is really important. So I do like to meet different photographers that have different variations in their work and do different styles and different sorts of sort of photography because I think that's important
Yes.
to have that variety to
Yeah.
be able to offer to clients.
That kind of leads me on to thinking about how does it work when you're recommending photographers to clients? Do you sort of do you try and get a feel for what type of client you have and who would be a good match, or do you just present a sort of the same five people
Yeah.
every time, or how does it work?
So initially, I would when I meet with that client and we have that full sort of consultation and they tell me exactly what they want. And if it's full planning that I'm doing, so I'm providing suppliers and all that stuff as well, then of course I ask them for photography wise, I would say, what sort of things are priority to you? What kind of style represents you? What kind of images do you want to get for your day? Do you want those natural shots, those like shots? Do you have a budget? That sort of stuff. So I'd ask them as many detailed
Okay.
questions as I can to get to know the couple's sort of expectations because obviously I've got to measure that. And then based on getting to know their personality and their sort of love story, I'd obviously would want a photographer that can portray that and capture that for them just as they are perfectly. So I would then look at the recommended, like the supplier list that I have, and I'd probably think which one will be a best fit for the style that they're saying, and give them a few options and say these are the ones that are within your budget that I work with regularly that I think are fantastic. The style of work is just up your street, and I'd be more than happy for an intro to be placed into that.
Yeah. Okay. So you just said then the photographers that I love working with. What is it that makes you love working with a photographer?
I like working with photographers because they're also very creative souls a lot of the time. I like the fact that they all have individual styles and stamps. It's all that each one's unique because for me, I think photography is an art. It's a form of art, just like an artist when they sit down with a pen on a paper, it never comes out the same as the next. Even if you try to replicate it, it isn't. And I think that photography is that same thing. It's an expression of how people, how you feel in that moment when you see that picture. It's supposed to express feelings, and I love that. I love the fact that they can bring my visual like creative sort of concepts that I've put together to life and bring emotion to that in their imagery. So I think like as well, it depends on the photographers. I mean, I'm quite lucky that everyone that I've worked with I've liked. There's only ever been a few times where I've worked with people that I've just not clicked with, and that's
Mm.
quite rare for me. I am a people person, and I do only now I work for myself. That's a big part of the selection process for me is that I also have to click with them. Like I need to gel with them because creatively, otherwise it just doesn't work. Um, so I think a big part of the thing I like about working with photographers is that you build a friendship as well. You build an understanding of how each of you works. And in the future, then when you do other projects together, you already understand each other's working process. You understand exactly what each of you wants and to achieve out of things. And I think it makes it better because then every time when you work together, you can be more and more creative because that person knows how you think and they can also use that to sort of create the images that you want to get across. But also I think like with brides and grooms and stuff, for me, especially with weddings, I think it's really important to work with a photographer that does have a personality. It might sound silly, but I have actually, which I find bizarre, but I have worked with some people who still look at it like a 9 to 5 job. Like they're like, okay, well, I'm paid from 12 till 6, so tell me what you want to do in those hours. And then at 6, like dead on 6, they're packing their bag, and they don't integrate with the crowd. Like they don't speak with the sort of guests very much. And I really, that's something that I really dislike. I don't like, for me, I really don't like it when a photographer comes and they treat it like a job, which might sound daft, but because when I do a wedding, I don't treat it like a job. For me, I integrate myself to be a part of that wedding, a part of that celebration, a part of that journey. And I want to feel all of those emotions and experience all of that with my couple. And I also want everybody involved to do the same thing. I want them to have as much passion for that wedding as if it was their own, because I think that's really important, like to make everybody feel comfortable. That's when you get the best shots. And I think those people that turn up and do that 9 to 5 thing where they're like, okay, well, I'm here for 4 hours, tell me where you want me to be, and they're clock watching, it just doesn't flow the same and you don't get the same vibe out of it. And it should just feel like one giant party for everyone involved, I think. And I find people like that a little hard to work with because I'm not like that. So I do like to have photographers that are very forward thinking and proactive and just like got a good personality and a good heart, and they just want to be there because they are passionate about what they do, not because they're getting money at the end of the day out of it.
Yeah.
So that's
Okay.
really important.
Okay. So apart from a basic level of professionalism and them having that heart in it, what other sort of things do you want to see from the photographer that is going to keep you referring work to them? You know, so is it like, do you want photos of your setup? Do you want to see sort of a solid connection between the photographer and the client? What sort of things
Yeah.
make you happy?
First and I think first and foremost, the most important thing for me is obviously the relationship between the client and them. Obviously, I would love set up images, but they're an added bonus. Like that benefits me, not the client. So they are an added bonus. I would love set up pictures, in action shot pictures, but they are of a bonus. And I think it's really nice and really kind when they do that. And I love that. But for me, the most important thing, first and foremost, is the relationship they have with the client. I want my clients to feel comfortable and at ease always. I don't want them to feel like harassed at any point to constantly be making group photos. I want the photographers to really understand the client so that they can tell when that client maybe feels uncomfortable or they've had enough, or just to be able to gauge the situation so that it's always a nice, relaxed sort of atmosphere and they've always got that good relationship with them. So that's obviously really important. And then afterwards, I always look for as well, obviously, the pre-wedding and the post-wedding like communication. So for me, the communication is really important. If they're really slow with they're replying on emails and they don't really like if I say, can we meet for a meeting because the bride wants to go through a few things, and they're like, oh, just send me an email. Those sort of things I dislike because I like to do things in person. I like to make sure that the bride feels comfortable that everything has been completely got by the photographer. And post sort of turnaround of images, I guess them being efficient with the turnaround of images to the bride and groom. If they say that they're going to have them by a certain date, I would expect them to have them by a certain date, and things like that. And also just on the day, like there are some photographers that don't really go out. I've noticed, not always, like most professional ones do, but there has been occasions where some that I've worked with have been like the clients afterwards have been, oh, well, I didn't get the shots of like my brothers or with my immediate family, and I wanted those group shots, and I'm really disappointed that I didn't get any. And the photographer's like, well, they didn't ask me for them, or I didn't know where they were. So I kind of feel sometimes like it's not the photographer's job to constantly be running around after people, but I like it if they're proactive in thinking like, oh, maybe they should be having photos with those, and then grab me and I'll go get them. But some, I don't like them to just do what they think, like just to go and just take pictures of random things and sort of think that that's enough. They've taken photos and that's it. I really want them to capture just what the client wants and nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah.
So that content is important, because there has been a few occasions where they might end up with loads of beautiful detail shots and portrait shots of them, but not so many with the right members of their family, and obviously they're memories that you can't really redo. So I think it's really important, like as a photographer, it's one of the most crucial parts of the wedding, really, is from a supplier point of view, because you can't redo any of that. I can't set that action shot back up for you. So we literally have that one time to capture that, otherwise that's not gonna happen again, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I really hate it. That would be the worst thing for me, that after the wedding, if the client was like, oh, everything was amazing, but I was just a bit gutted with the photography because I felt sad that I didn't get this shot, this shot, this shot, because there's nothing I can do about that then. And I always try my best if ever there's an issue to resurrect it. But in that case, that's nothing. I wouldn't actually physically be able to do anything. So yeah, it is really important for the photographers to get the briefing 100% right initially.
Yeah. Okay. And is there anything else you think, any pet peeves or things you wish photographers knew or did without you having to tell them?
I think again, I don't know. I guess it depends on the photography you've got. Like everybody's different, and some photographers focus on different things more than others. But for me, like the details are equally as important. Like I think, like a recent wedding I did, I had to send the photographer up to the bridal suite to say like, can you get pictures of this and this in the bridal suite? And they're things that, again, if I'm running around, I'd rather not have to be thinking to ask the photographer not to miss those things. For me, the details are equally as important as everything else, like pictures of the dress before it's on, and the fragrances and the buttonholes being placed on the groom, and like the really tiny crucial little things that matter, or maybe like the sentimental things that the bride and groom have incorporated into the wedding as maybe like a personal joke between themselves or something like that. I think those really little things, they're really important to capture, and sometimes unless you heavily like say to the photographer, because obviously they do have a lot going on with trying to get everybody together and take their group photos and things. I think unless you say, oh, there's also this and this and this up in the room, or there's like this on the table that's important to them, that sometimes can be missed. But again, I think a good photographer, when you have your initial meeting with them. Like a lady I initially worked with, she came with like full brief and she had like a full inquiry form, and I was like, oh, I already like you, because she was like had question after question after question, and she even was just asking questions about like how they got met and like their love story, and so she sort of could really get to know them. So she, from that form, knew all of the things that were important, that the pre-wedding shots were important, that they wanted the things like the wedding dress hanging up and the rings together and the different perfumes and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
all those sort of things, like the shoes, everything. She knew that all those accessory shots were important to the bride, so that was incorporated into the time scale of the day. So I think just having that real detailed brief initially is for me is the thing that I wish everybody did. I wish everybody was that like perfectionist when it comes to gathering as much information as possible.
All right, Abigail. Thank you. Thanks for your time. And if people want to find you online, are you on Instagram?
Yes, I'm on Instagram. My handle's at by Abigail Lucy.
Okay.
And my website is www.abigail-lucy.com. And I'm also on Facebook, which is Abigail Lucy Weddings and Events.
Okay. Excellent. Okay. Thanks so much for your time.
Hi, it was lovely to speak with you.
You too. Take care. Bye bye.